Good morning, everyone. It is March 8th. It is now 10:06 a.m., and this is a meeting coordinated by the Cannabis Committee Chair, Ms. Danita, Representative Danita Yanktamai, and we have the commissioners for the Cannabis Commission and the Executive Director, Ms. Monique Boyer Sablon, to give us an update. It's been a while and the legislature was concerned or interested in receiving an update from the Cannabis Commission. And this morning in our meeting, we have Representative Corina Magnolia. We also have Representative Vicente Camacho and myself, Representative Selena Babata. We also have our legal counsel, Mr. Joe Tyron, and our IT manager, Mr. Jonathan Diaz. And at this time, I'd like to recognize also like I said, the executive director, Ms. Monique Sablon, the chairperson of the Cannabis Commission, Ms. Nadine De Leon Guerrero. We have the vice chair of the Cannabis Commission, Mr. Matthew De Leon Guerrero. We also have in our chamber Commissioner Valentino Tysican. And virtually, we have Commissioner from Tinian, Ms. Journey Hofschneider, and Commissioner from Rhoda, represented by Mr. Thomas Songsong. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Monique to start with her presentation. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Testing. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes, loud and clear.
perfect. Good morning, House Committee on Cannabis, commissioners of the Cannabis Commission, uh, Mr. Joe Tyron, and members of the committee. What an opportunity it is for us to be able to be here again to give you guys an update on, honestly, the progress that we've made thus far since the initiation of the industry. There's a lot of information that is to be told today. I hope I can do that to the best of my ability and are definitely open to questions. Perfect. So if we can bring our attention to the screens. Firstly, I would like to just reiterate where the commission was first established. Oh, good morning. Thank you. Where the commission was first established. So, under Sinamay Public Law 20-66, also known as the Talmuad Sensible Sinamay Cannabis Act of 2018, was the initiation and the launch of what is now legalized marijuana or recreational use slash medicinal slash commercial slash non-commercial cannabis use within the Commonwealth. To note, it was later in Sinamay Public Law 21-05 that amendments were made to the initial law, amendments that are definitely aimed to continue to help to build this type of industry. And then, of course, with the commissioners of the Cannabis Commission came the cannabis rules and regulations, which help us govern and provide a safe and adequate cannabis industry that works for our Commonwealth. And so this came about recreational use, non-commercial use through the Homegrown Marijuana Registry, and of course, cannabis commercial licensing, which provides several different businesses that are able to be opened here in addition to this new industry. So, like I mentioned, the commission was established as the cannabis regulatory agency of the government of the Northern Mariana Islands. Sitting as chairperson, we have Nadine De Leon Guerrero, who represents Saipan. We have Vice Chairman Matthew De Leon Guerrero, who represents Saipan. Secretary Journey Hofschneider, who sits in Virginian. Treasurer Valentino Tysican, representing Northern Islands. And of course, member Thomas Songsong from Rhoda. I serve the board. At the pleasure of the board, I am Monique Boris Sablon, the managing director. We are also provided assistance and help through the legal counsel from the Office of the Attorney General's office. And we have about 3 divisions that we have established: our administrative services, permitting and licensing, and enforcement and investigations. So the commissioners are 5 members that were appointed to serve as commissioners for the Sinamay cannabis industry, responsible to promulgate rules and regulations as may be necessary to fulfill the intent of the Cannabis Act. Regulations that were implemented, we have a total of 73 pages worth of just regulations that are able to get this industry going. from the breakdown of each requirement for all of our licenses, such as marijuana producers, marijuana retailers, accountability through packaging, labeling, medicinal marijuana, marijuana events, penalties and fines. The list goes on and on. And so we're able to continue to add and amend as needed, which is also the issue and what we're trying to do here today with the cannabis amendments to the Cannabis Act. So the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands Cannabis Commission, our goals are to keep cannabis out of the hands of the youth, keep profits out of the pockets of criminals, protect public health and safety by allowing individuals who are 21 years of age or older access to legal cannabis, and to maintain and build a robust regulatory regime. I myself am the managing director. I'm the head of the administration of the commission, and I'm responsible for doing just what the Cannabis Act and its rules and regulations intend. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have administrative services. This is really just our upkeeping office manager. We have permitting and licensing, which is really responsible for the reviewing, processing, inspecting, and investigating of our cannabis applications, as well as our enforcement and investigations that continue to ensure that our licensees remain compliant with the laws and the regulations. So a little timeline of where we've been. I kind of already touched base on this, but from September 2018 all the way up to the present, so much has changed. So much has been going on. And so I did want to reflect in August and September 2019. This is when the Cannabis Act was amended and the commission was organized. So the 5 commissioners were appointed and the work really began. It wasn't until March 2020, which, if you remember, that is really when the pandemic hit, that the first set of rules and regulations were created. They had met their 180-day mandated mark to create these regulations, but unfortunately at that time, government shutdown, COVID had, reached its way worldwide. And so moving forward to July 2020, as we are going through the pandemic, we were still working to ensure that we were getting this industry to where it needed to be. So in July 2020, the certifications through the Commonwealth Registry, we were able to certify the regulations, which then initiated our opportunity to begin. And so, like I had mentioned, from March to July and on, we were working on the creation of applications. What were we going to ask for? What were we going to need in order to ensure that licensees, when they do apply, that they're able to apply and provide the information necessary? So it wasn't until August 2020 that we were able to release those applications after being thoroughly reviewed by the AG's office for commercial and non-commercial purposes. And in September 2020, we were very surprised and very happy to know that there were about 10 applications, 9 to 10 applications that were submitted by September, which was really, really interesting. With the pandemic, oh, sorry, were you not able to hear me? Oh no. Go back a little bit because it's really interesting stuff. So in July 2020, the certification of the regulations really set forth and set the tone for the industry. But during March to July, we were already creating the applications, trying to ensure that we were looking at both the Cannabis Act and its regulations to ensure that whatever it needed in order for a licensee to be compliant but also thrive was implemented into those applications. And we also had them thoroughly reviewed by the AG's office before the launch. So in August 2020 was when the industry really opened. August 4th, 2020, to be exact. I remember exactly where I was. And so the applications for commercial and non-commercial were launched online. And in September 2020, we received about 9 to 10 applications, which was very interesting because we were in the height of the pandemic, but we still had people who were willing to take the risk to be a part of this industry. Yeah. And so from September 2020 all the way into 2021 was the intaking and the processing and building our structure for this industry. Okay. You may already know But for the sake of education, and especially because we are live, I do want to reiterate what are our commercial cannabis licenses that we have to offer. So depending on the type of license issued by the commission, a licensed business, business would be authorized to commercially cultivate, manufacture, store, distribute, allow for on-site consumption or sale of marijuana to a person 21 years of age or older within the Commonwealth. So we have a marijuana producer license, marijuana wholesaler, marijuana processor, marijuana retailer, and a marijuana lounge. They're all very exciting, truthfully. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth about what each of them has to offer and what that allows, or what's the capabilities within or behaviors allowed within those licenses. So we have a marijuana producer. We all know what that is. It's essentially a farmer, but a farmer who is able to farm something in particular, right? So they're able to plant, cultivate, grow, harvest, and dry marijuana through indoor or outdoor or a combination of the two. We have some very talented individuals within the Commonwealth who really know just what they're doing when it comes to cultivation. So within the marijuana producers, there are 4 subclasses. There's a marijuana micro producer, marijuana producer class 1, class 2, and a class 3. Please note that the marijuana producer class 3 is the largest production cultivation license you can acquire within the Commonwealth. So that's a cultivation of 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, whereas a micro producer, which we're truly aimed towards our smaller farmers, to give them the opportunity to be able to have a piece of the pie in this industry. So they're able to possess no more than 25 mature marijuana plants. I don't need to go through the whole list. You guys can see applications fees definitely vary. I believe that they're fair. A micro production, someone who might be interested in micro production would need to pay a fee of $250 for application, and a licensing fee once issued a license of $500. Whereas a micro producer class 3 would pay $1,000 for an application fee, and you'll see a hefty $6,500. But that's really because of the size of their license and what they're able to do. Moving forward, a marijuana processor is able to process marijuana items into products such as topicals, concentrates, and extracts. It's important to note, too, we are not offering any endorsement for edibles at the moment. That's due to not having a marijuana testing facility. So to ensure the safety of our community, we're not going to be able to endorse something like that at the moment. But topicals, concentrates, extracts, they range from lotions, dabs, etc. Application fee, licensing fee is there as well. Marijuana wholesale, very obvious. Purchase marijuana items for resale for a licensed marijuana business. To a licensed marijuana business. Also keep, store, and distribute marijuana items in bulk. And then marijuana retail, everyone has seen, various ones in different jurisdictions. We've seen them of all kinds. So it's great to know that we have this here. And this is a privilege that our community is able to participate in. So they're able to sell marijuana items within a marijuana retail establishment directly to consumers, and no on-site consumption is allowed. So it's really just a step in, purchase your marijuana product, and step out and go back to your home or alternative private resident. I'm very biased. This is the funnest license that we have. A marijuana lounge is very unique. Not every jurisdiction has this type of license available. And so this is the opportunity to allow for sale and or allow for on-site consumption of marijuana items on a licensed premise. So a marijuana lounge class 1 allows essentially, you're able to sell marijuana for on-site consumption within the licensed establishment versus the marijuana lounge class 2, where you have a facility, could be a cafe, movie theater, etc., where you allow people to bring their marijuana in and pay a fee to just be able to smoke it there. The reason being for that is you're not able to smoke marijuana in public. And I know it's an educational thing, so you are not allowed to smoke marijuana in public. Quote me. Okay. Okay. So, like I had mentioned, the process has been definitely, a journey. Not journey, how should I, but a journey. Just building the process that works for the commission / also is not such a hurdle for applicants. So since 2000, I was hired in November 2019. we were able to finally hire in July 2021. And so think about that. Just being able to build this industry alongside the commissioners has been really something that we never would have imagined would have happened. And yet here we are today, as hopefully we're going and moving into an endemic, that we're going to be able to see this really thrive. So to kind of reiterate, what does the application processing look like? Very general. Administrative review, ensuring that all the documents that we require through the cannabis application / its appendices / its individual history forms / whatever is expected from the law and the regulations is present in the package. Also, their payment of non-refundable application fees is also there. We issue any incomplete letters if in fact the application is incomplete. Next, we move on to a thorough compliance review, and this is really looking at the application and cross-referencing back and forth, back and forth. I work a lot with my permitting and licensing team to ensure that we're picking each other's brain, making sure that we're applying the same methods to every single type of application. So if we allow something here because the law allows it, we need to make sure it's allowed in every other application as well. Issuance of approval in principle letter. This is a term or a method that we had acquired from Canada, actually. It pretty much is a letter that we issue to an applicant that says, your application is compliant thus far. So long as nothing changes, please go ahead and create or begin to build your operations. This does not allow them to participate in the marijuana sales, marijuana growing, etc. It just says that you can begin to build your establishment or to set it up in time for inspection. So they have about 1 year from the issuance of the approval in principle letter to begin to contact the commission to schedule an on-site inspection. We give them 1 year because some build from the ground up, or some already have a lease agreement with a already established commercial building, etc. We do the on-site inspection. We review their application, their floor plans. We're ensuring that everything that they had proposed matches. Think about it this way. If we were to license that applicant within the next week or month, we always ask ourselves the question, will they be able to operate if we provide them this license? Are they able to operate within at least a week or a month or 2 months from the issuance of that license? That's what we're looking for. We're not looking to license someone who's not going to begin their operations until 2 years later. Yeah. So what we do is my team, they'll compile all this information. They present it to me. We sit, we talk, we figure out, are we going to move forward next with a board hearing? And then we host a board hearing where we invite the applicant in. The board has the opportunity to ask them questions. We provide the board with all the information and documents that they need. And then we make a presentation. From there, the board makes their decision, and that's how licenses are issued. So they play a very, very important role in allowing us to present the facts to them and then allowing them to be able to question them and then licensing there from there on. Whew, this is fun. No, you don't need to really look at the right, but let's look at the left. Okay, so total applications since August 2020, we've received a total of 28 applications for a marijuana license in general. We have a total of 10 applications pending. Pending means that the applicant is missing information and we're waiting for them to submit that to the commission. Total AIP is the approval in principle that I had mentioned earlier. Total inactive means that they had withdrawn their application for various reasons. So total application fees that we have collected thus far is $25,250. And you can see the breakdown to the right. So out of those 28 applications, we've received 16 for production. We've received 6 for retail, etc. Everyone okay? I can move on? Okay, licensing. We've issued a total of 9 licenses thus far. We have a total active licenses. We have about 8 right now, which means we have 8 businesses that are up and running within the Commonwealth at the moment. Total licensing fees that we've collected is $34,700, and total renewal fees that we have collected since September 30th, 2021 is $26,500. In the Cannabis Act amendments, we did mention about how September 30th can actually be an issue for us when it comes in terms for licensing. So if you apply for a license in January 2022, your license will not go all the way up to January 2023. It ends September 30th of this year, which is unfortunate. They miss out on a huge chunk of that annual, what should be an annual license, in what I believe. Please let me know if I'm talking too fast or scrolling too fast. Okay. Projected. As I mentioned, we have pending applications. We have applications that are in AIP mode. That's what I like to call it. So we're projecting what if we did license every single one of those pending or those in approval in principle. That's a total of 17 businesses that we're going to be able to license. And that's an anticipated licensing fee of $76,900 in general if we're able to get every single applicant to be compliant and to be able to pass the board's decision of approval. So that's a total of projected another 10 production licensed businesses, a processor, a wholesale, retail, lounge will have a license across the board for every type of license that we have to offer. Okay, licensing timeline. So kind of shifting back, 2021 was a very special time because this was truly the initiation of the industry where we saw licenses being given out. So the very first license ever issued in the history of the Commonwealth for cannabis in general was given to T. Marianas, who received a producer class 1 license. He was the very first producer / very first license. Moving on to May, we had issued a license for a producer class 3, which was the very first and largest production license to Saipan Select. And of course, we also approved a retailer license for Saipan Select. Moving forward in July, we issued a producer class license for Canna Marianas and then a retail license as well for Canna Marianas. We continued on moving into July. Commonwealth Cannabis received their retailer license, and Commonwealth Cannabis also received a lounge class 2. In September, we did our renewals. We renewed 2 producer class 1 licenses, 1 producer class 3, 3 retailers, and we also issued a license for a producer class 2 for Max Farms. And to end the year, we issued a license for producer class 1 under Primo Farm 670. We are continuing the process of licensing. We actually have a few approval and principles that are coming up, part. Thus, they're also doing their part to meet our deadlines. Yeah. So, with the 5 different production licenses that were issued within the last year, a total of 17 jobs were created. And these are jobs that range from owner, head grower, grower assistant, production manager, farm assist, which I think was very clever. I was like, you guys are good. Farmer, etc. We were able to see 17 positions being filled. And that was a total of $379,964. 3 are part-time, 14 are full-time.
I have a question at this point, if I may.
Yeah.
Of the 17 positions that were created as a result of approving the 5 licensees last year, are they all new positions, or could it be that the owner is also the grower, overlapping
Yes.
Positions, or are these new positions?
Actually, it's a variation of both. Of course, for our smaller licenses, such as a producer class 1, you're only cultivating less than 750 square feet, which is not a lot, truly. So they do act in some cases as the owner of the business / also the grower or the head grower. But almost always they have a secondary employee that is either their farm assistant or, growing assistant. I really don't, the terms are up to them. But for the rest of them, they're really all new various jobs that have been created. And I think it's interesting to see, you'll see the annual salaries, right? They range. The lower salaries, such as like owner operator, you'll see there's no salary listed. That's because this is the actual owner of the license. They own a producer class 1. So obviously he's not able to pay himself, but he does list his title as a job. Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you. Okay. For marijuana retailers, right now we have 3. I'm sure you've seen them all over the island. We have Saipan Select, Canna Marianas, Commonwealth Cannabis. A total of 15 job positions were created as well. Same as the question that was asked earlier. Some of them have taken on the title or some sort of title, right? Like retail operations director or store manager, etc. So yes, that is their company that they own, but they do hold a position within their licensed business. So a total of 15 positions were created. Um, the names of bud tenders, some of them put them together, some of them separate. It's fine. A total of $203,546 are going into the pockets of different people within this workforce. So a total of 12 part-time and a total of 3 full-time positions have been created through marijuana retail in general. And this is just of being open for less than a year. As we see our licenses continue, as we see our applicants continue to be licensed, that's even more jobs. Remember that there's so many different variations in sizes. Some people want to have a small retail shop. Some people want to open up a larger retail shop. Some people want to be producer class 3 versus micro producer. You know, the variation in how many jobs this is going to create is definitely going to expand for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
It's good to finish your thought. Thank you for sharing this. I'm sorry I came in a little late and missed a little at the beginning, but I love what you're sharing right now. And I was curious, is this jobs exclusively for Saipan? Have there been do you have this data disaggregated for the other islands?
So unfortunately, we don't have any licenses issued to Tinian and Rhoda at the moment. That doesn't mean that there's a complete missing interest in Tinian and Rhoda. We actually have, we try in the commission to go the extra mile, which is if people are interested but are not yet sure if they want to commit to the application process, because it's very lengthy, we take the time to work with them prior. So I've worked with interested investors in Tinian, I've had virtual conversations with those who are interested in opening up a business in Rhoda. And so it's really about us ensuring that they understand what is expected in the application process and trying to help them get to that point. Saipan is very different from Tinian and Rhoda, and we understand that. We never want to have them be in the back burner, but we also have to acknowledge their location, their population. They don't even have zoning. So we even have to establish some sort of zoning criteria on our own to ensure that the public is well informed, which is what we're working on too. And so we're looking at around end of April to May to do huge outreaches in Tinian and Rhoda. Probably 2 to 3 days at most in both islands to ensure that we're talking about enforcement, we're talking about commercial, we're talking about homegrown, etc. Yeah. So that's definitely in the plans at the moment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to enforcement. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. Sure.
Can you just go back to the previous slide, if you don't mind? Okay, so on your previous slide, I was just curious, is your commission also responsible for just making sure that labor laws are adhered to? I noticed that one of the positions there for a grower assistant was at $12K full-time. And if you do the math, it's actually below the minimum wage at $5.77 per hour. So
Perfect. I'm glad you brought that up. So as you see head grower and you see grower assistant, so actually the way that I drew this out was how our licensees had submitted the information. So the head grower is, this particular license is an LLC. So they have various member managers, right? So one of their member managers, who I believe is like who has more of a share, highest shares within this LLC, is getting paid a little bit more as the head grower, right? Whereas the grower assistant, who is also probably a who is a member manager but has contributed less, that's where I'm assuming the differentiation in that this is a smaller license for sure. So yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
minimum wage. I was wondering if the commission is also.
I would say we're not looking into labor laws. We would like to give that opportunity for Department of Labor to be able to facilitate and enforce that. But that's definitely something that we can look into now. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. But just to reiterate, I know for a fact that these head grower and grower assistants are from the same business, and both of them are member managers in their LLC. So that's probably why, I don't know, they're able to pay themselves well, and they're fine with it. Okay, sorry. Okay. Are we good with this slide too? Perfect. Okay. So growth, to kind of reiterate, yes, the first license was issued in March 2021. But sales between licenses never really happened until July 2021. So as a producer, you're able to sell to other producers. You're also able to sell to retailers. But if you backtrack a little bit, you'll realize in the licensing timeline that it takes about 4 months or more to harvest, to get to the harvest point for marijuana. That's if you do it correctly. That's if you don't make a mistake, right? We've seen our producers who have admitted that, oh man, the lights were too bright, or it was this and that, right? So July was really where we began to see how much money our licenses were able to make. So we actually got this information from their BGRs. So gross revenue reported per month, and this is a combination, holistic view of all of our licenses, range from 81,464.44 in July, all the way up to 171,978.78 in December. I'm going to reiterate, I had mentioned this in a previous, I think, public comment or question and comment. We've only really seen the industry grow in terms of money since July. And so the opportunity to at least be able to have the commission go a full year up till July 2022, I really believe we're going to be able to report back even better numbers. I mean, yeah, this is only 6 months worth of information and data, which I think is not that bad. But I think that there's so much more information to gain if we would just have a little bit more time to see this growth truly happen. Are we good with this slide? Okay. So BGR tax imposed per month for all of our licenses. Like I said, we've only seen this really truly start to move since July, and we're only reporting up to December. But I did want to talk about the next slide, which is about the monthly marijuana retailer surtax and cannabis excise tax returns. No, I'm not going to explain this. I am not a accountant in any way, but I did want to reiterate that the Division of Tax and Revenue had just recently put together their rules and regulations in regards to cannabis tax. And I believe that had passed in October 2021 or November 2021. But this document, which our licensees are now responsible to fill out, was not made available until December. So I was going to see if we can pull some information, but I don't think that it would be information that is useful now. So I look forward to the future conversations that we're going to have and presentations where I can provide you what is the marijuana retailer surtax and what is the cannabis excise tax returns for the industry thus far. So pulling from the revenue tax regulations, a yearly surtax and total gross revenue of marijuana retailers in the amount of 15% is what will be taxed. Medicinal marijuana will be taxed at 7.5%. Cannabis excise tax is imposed on the marijuana producer at the rate of 15% of the gross revenues from the first sale of the cannabis or marijuana grown by the producer. What we are doing is we are working with the Division of Revenue and Tax. Tomorrow, we actually have a cannabis taxation presentation that we're hosting for our licensees so that they're well aware of what this cannabis taxation, what the rules and regulations say now, and how are they supposed to or expected to report this information. So our first round of outreach goes to our licensees. Our second round of outreach will go to applicants that we have currently. And then our third round will be potential applicants, aka outreach to the public. Yeah. And we're working together with Director Tracy from Rev and Tax. So enforcement. I wanted to pull out this really interesting chart that I had received from CNMI Department of Corrections. It's a statistics chart. Yes, 3 people were arrested and detained for possession of marijuana in 2015. From 2019 to 2022, there has been no arrest or detainment for possession of marijuana. And I truly believe that that has a lot to do with the commission's part in ensuring that our officers are fully aware of just how many penalties and fines exist within the Cannabis Act for non-licensee related crimes. So that's crimes of smoking in the presence of a minor, importing or exporting marijuana, use of marijuana while driving, unlawful delivery of marijuana, marijuana trafficking. I believe goes up to $40,000 and is, I think, 10 years imprisonment. So they're very hefty fines, very lengthy imprisonment terms, and we want to ensure that our officers who are leading the front lines are very aware. So we are presenting the Cannabis Act enforcement training. So this will be conducted by myself in conjunction with the Chief Prosecutor Chester Hines from the Criminal Division of the AG's office. We've actually tried or attempted to do this presentation back in 2020, but with the COVID protocols, et cetera, we weren't able to reach the audience we were trying to. So each law enforcement officer per the Cannabis Act, having notice, knowledge, reasonable grounds of suspicion of any violation of the Cannabis Act, shall immediately notify DPS, the Commission, Office of Attorney General. The Cannabis Act is very specific. It says that we need to work together, which is what we're trying to do in this Cannabis Enforcement Act training, is to establish at least educational resources for our law enforcement frontliners. So March 17th and March 18th, we are doing our first 2 rounds of sessions with CNMI Department of Public Safety. We're going to be training DPS frontline officers and supervisors, and we're also looking to work with the Drug Enforcement Task Force. In April, we're focusing mainly on the frontliners of the Division of Customs. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Tinian and Rhoda is our focus for the month of May. The only reason why they're so spread out is these are multiple sessions, and having to work with law enforcement shifts is very interesting. You know, we want to make sure they're awake and ready to learn, because there's a lot. It's actually longer than this presentation today. Yeah. Okay. Cannabis tracking. I'm going to bring this up until we get a cannabis tracking system in our grasp. So cannabis tracking system is a system that almost every other jurisdiction has. Even Guam has one. It allows for tracking, tracing, trending, and reporting. It provides regulatory framework for us to be able to see in real time where the seed all the way up to scale of marijuana is in its lifespan. Public health, how are we going to be able to ensure that we know if one batch of marijuana sold to a consumer is bad? How do we track it back to who is the licensee that had produced it? What is the batch number, etc.? Accountability. Our licensees need to be held accountable, and we need to be able to prove that accountability through a system such as CTS. Legal versus illegal. We need to be able to track legal cannabis, but we also need to ensure that illegal cannabis is not entering the system in any way, shape, or form. And regulatory oversight and reporting. When we acquire this CTS program, it's not just for us. It's for revenue and tax. It's for customs. It's for DPS. It's a framework that we control, but we're able to provide access, information, reports, et cetera, to other agencies that are stakeholders in this industry.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I also want to recognize the presence of Miss Representative Leila Staffler and Representative Joel Camacho, who are joining us this morning. You mentioned, and I'm sorry, I'm going back a little bit to the enforcement. You mentioned that 3 people were arrested in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, if I saw that
Yeah.
slide. Yeah. So there's a lot of misconception out there in the public because we have recreational, the law allows for recreational usage. So one of the questions I've been asked before is, can we just have a barbecue at my house and we all go there and smoke marijuana? Can you clarify that to the public?
Yes, definitely. I am not a lawyer. And so what I state is my interpretation as the managing director of the Cannabis Commission. I have a lawyer right next to me though. So no, I'm just kidding. The Cannabis Act, it allows for you, it does not allow for anyone, whether 21 years of age or older, and definitely not under 21, to smoke cannabis in public. Public, I can actually hopefully maybe do another presentation. Enforcement presentation would be very interesting right now. I should have included that, but it doesn't allow for anyone to smoke in public. Public means the beach. It means a hallway in a hotel. It means just out there on the street. But you are able to consume cannabis in your private residence or another location that you own. What you can also do is you can smoke cannabis in someone else's location, thus that you have permission to do so. So let's say, for instance, I can't smoke cannabis, but let's say I could. I'm over 21. I go to my best friend's house, and she lives in Capitol Hill. She owns the house. She owns the property. I say, can I smoke marijuana here? And she says, yes, I can smoke there because I'm over the age of 21. She's also over the age of 21. If there's a minor or her daughter or her son is present, I cannot smoke cannabis there. So yes, barbecue, right? But is it a barbecue of those who are 21 years of age or older? Are there kids present? Does the person who owns the property, are they allowing for that? Or are you going against their wishes of, no, I don't want any cannabis here? That's kind of the gray area that we're working with. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's really, sure. Yeah, actually, sorry, let me go here. Smoking in the presence of a minor. So how I explained earlier, which is if I have permission to smoke on someone's private property and that person is 21 years of age or older, but they have a daughter or a son who is, let's say, 16, and within the same, I don't know, out there in the yard when we're barbecuing, if I'm smoking and I know that that minor is there, I'm in violation of smoking in the presence of a minor. But if it's just me and my pare who are having a little barbecue, hanging out, and it's just us, and he's 21 years of age or older, and I'm 21, good to go. That's where the act explains that. That's a gray area that I would leave for legal. And the only reason why I don't want to answer that is that's really a gray area. Because what if the minor peeks through the window? What if the minor decides to run outside quickly? You're going to throw the marijuana in the bush? And that's a fire issue. I'm just kidding. I would like to leave that. Maybe I can bring that up with our legal counsel. But that's where I would make the decision personally to not even do it. If I know for a fact that there's a minor somewhere around. A minor, I mean anyone under 21. That's how the Cannabis Act explains. Sure. Sure.
And slide number 2 is the last letter.
Yeah.
There's something on there that says marijuana events.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
Sorry, where?
Slide
May I ask everyone to please use your microphone?
Marijuana defense? Oh, events. Okay,
Yeah, events.
perfect. Awesome. Yes. So marijuana events, sorry. Oh, I'll just talk about it now. Marijuana events is something that other jurisdictions do. Not every jurisdiction does it. And so the board had collectively agreed that we should allow for marijuana events, but make sure that they're stringent. Like the rules and the regulations are so stringent that there needs to be public notice. There needs to be boards and signs that explain what this event is going to be. It needs to ensure that it's not in a public place because you cannot have any type of cannabis, anything on Department of Public Land or a public space. But if you own a farm in Markby and that's your own, you can have a marijuana event there, but you have to apply. And so the application process is going to ask you how much marijuana are you going to provide or present? How long is the event? It's what I can do for the committee is let me provide you that section of the regulations. It's very lengthy, and I appreciate it because it does hold a lot of accountability on whoever is requesting for the marijuana event. You're also only allowed to have a certain number of marijuana events within a calendar year. So it's good. You can't have one every day, unfortunately. It's about like you cannot have more than, I think, chair or vice or Commissioner Val, more than 30 days in a calendar year, or 10 days, sorry, 10 days in a calendar year. Yeah. Yeah. You can only, you have a limitation as a person applying of that event continuing on for only 10 days. You can do 1 day, but the most you can do. Yes. You would have to do, I believe, the public notice. So even way before this, public notice has to be at least 30 days. So the application processing should happen at least a month in advance at the least. We're still fine tuning that application process. We want to ensure that we have that capability because we also know Road and Tinian. They're going to definitely want to apply for something like that as well. We want to make sure we have the ability to travel there to do the processing. But one thing,
So it's
sorry,
gonna be very strict when you do.
definitely.
Yeah,
And I
because
did,
according to House Bill 22-78, it is unlawful for any person to engage in the use, display, or exhibit of marijuana items in public
Yep.
place or in the presence of a person under 21
Correct.
years of age.
correct.
So that's
Yes,
gonna be very
but it would need,
stringent.
yes, so the public event would only happen on a private property, like on someone's private property. And so those are things we're going to look into. Are minors going to be available to participate in this event? No. If they say there's going to be minors at the event, it will be an automatic no.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to have a wedding at their house and they wanted to be able to have marijuana present at that event, and you're going to have your what's it called, flower girls or ring bearers, no, you can't. But I did want to reiterate, and I'm really glad you brought up that question. We need the enforcement capacity. We do. We need the enforcement capacity to ensure that we're able to.
So let me ask another question.
Huh?
This otherwise reads that, but also all marijuana establishments should be held on public lands.
No. All marijuana establishments cannot be held on public land.
Excuse me, let me look at this
Sure.
again. The Department of Public Lands and all government entities shall lease or use public lands for the
Oh.
purpose of establishing cannabis.
My apologies,
Yeah.
Representative Camacho. I had that discussion with Chairwoman Danita. That actually needs to include shall not. That's actually directly from the law. The law says shall not have any events on public land. That's how it's written right now. When the Cannabis Act was there should be a shall not. That the draft is incorrect. Sorry.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Representative Joelle Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Are you guys working in tandem, or do you know if DPS already has a device to enforce using the use of marijuana while driving? And is there a level of THC level that would subject them to a criminal offense?
I really appreciate that as well. There are limitations imposed in the law in terms of how much you can transport, carry, etc. As for the device, other jurisdictions that I know from research, I'm not sure if I want to say it, but other jurisdictions, I'm not talking about CNMI. Other jurisdictions, if an officer appears to see that you may be intoxicated, they have the right to I don't know, arrest you, charge, something like that, right? With here, we are still in that conversation. I am not sure if DPS has some sort of device, and I'm sure that there is a device out there that can do that. I'm not sure if they have acquired it, but hopefully that's something that we can. And in terms of the, what's that called, percentage, we don't even have a testing facility to be able to test that. And so I would like to leave that question for DPS to answer. We can provide them with the information, the knowledge, and the outreach that we need. But in order for them to do their job effectively, they're going to also need to acquire what they need to do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question for me for this particular portion of the presentation. All of this addresses the recreational marijuana usage. I'm getting questions as well through our office about medicinal marijuana and what the requirements are for that. Can anybody answer to that? How do you treat that? I'd like to recognize the chairperson, Ms. Nadine De Leon Guerrero.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. So the very vital component of the medicinal program that is missing is the establishment of a laboratory. So what we're trying to do is, and there's already interest within investors that are looking into opening one up, but until the establishment of a laboratory is completed or is gone through the process, we cannot stand up the medicinal program. But I also want to talk about the part of the regulations that allows for those who are seeking for medicinal certifications that they are able to avail of the homegrown program. So that part of the medicinal program is there and is available for the ability to grow more plants than it would be if you were not a medicinal certificate holder. So, and I'll go ahead and have Vice.
Recognize
Add.
Mr. Matt DeLongro.
Thank you so much. In addition,
Sorry. You broke it.
sorry about that. So in addition, it seems like from the construction of the original law that there was two overlapping ideas that were kind of melded together at the end of it. One was medicinal only, and then there was a recreational component. When you look at the needs of a medical patient and looking for medicinal marijuana, really the only difference that would be in effect allowing them to access it is if they were from 18 to 21. If you were over the age of 21 and you had a need or a recommendation from a physician to acquire medicinal marijuana, the range of opportunities to purchase it would be the same in the absence of a lab. Once the lab is set up and there's certain things, then the medicinal dispensaries will be more available, should be more available. But prior to that, it's really the target. I mean, the area that's missing is 18 to 21, under the age of 21. Would be the area that would be most impacted from establishing the medicinal program, because you're allowed under the medicinal marijuana usage to be 18 to 21.
One other question before I recognize Representative Sattler. You said there currently you can't implement that portion of the component of the cannabis laws here because there's no lab facility right now. And can you help us understand what the lab's purpose would be in that particular situation?
Sure. Okay, so medicinal patients tend to have, I think, for the most part, the reason why they're looking for a medical certificate is that they already have existing health issues. And so, to better ensure that, we'd like for all product to be tested to ensure that they're not ingesting any harmful chemicals or, whatnot than a regular individual would. So it's part of the program that we have that particular part of the regulation stood up to allow for that kind of, it's almost like a checks and balance, right? We want to make sure that what is being issued out to the public, especially to medicinal patients, is that the products are all tested. And Vice, if you can.
Yeah, and I think a particular interest of the commission in our conversations has been testing primarily for pesticides, potency, mold. There's a bunch of other tests that are available, but for the purposes of the medicinal program, especially with mold and pesticides, and also in addition to the processors on edibles, potency and being able to adequately say that the potency that you're receiving is what the physician recommended. And that's we think important when it comes down to that connection.
So if I had a medicinal certification from, let's say, out of the CNMI's jurisdiction, would that be honored here based on the law?
So right now, if you had a medicinal license and you were over the age of 21, you could purchase marijuana from any of the retail establishments. Or within the regulations, we do have validity of external cards and authorizations for the use of the homegrown allowance. So under the regular homegrown program, you're allowed up to 6 mature, 12 immature plants. Under the medicinal homegrown, you double that, and you're allowed a larger amount for that purpose. So within those licenses, the stateside medicinal cards are allowable within the application process.
But they still have to go through the application process. Is that correct? So nobody, they can't just come in here freely with a card from California and, okay. And is there any fee associated with that? There is. Okay. Thank you. I recognize Representative Leila Staff.
If I could just add one quick
Sure.
thing. One of the recommendations within the law, and one peculiarity of the original law, allows for the homegrown applications, allows for fees. What it says explicitly is that we cannot deny anybody from a homegrown license. So uh, we're not. I mean, it's kind of unsure as to what's the application required for. Even if they did not fill the application, we're not able to deny them. If they were for some reason submit an application where they were flagrantly violating the law and not complying with the terms of the law, we cannot deny them. So one of the recommendations within the amendment is to just strike that provision out and allow us to deny folks who aren't complying with the law. One concern being if you get your homegrown registration card revoked and you reapply the next day, by the law, we can't deny you. And so that's something that we wanted to make sure that we are able to cover.
Thank you. Recognize.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Sorry if I missed this, but I wondered, I know that you are not able to give out medicinal certifications and things like at this point, but are the doctors and medical facilities here able to give, I don't know, prescriptions or recommendations for applying for services? I don't know what to call it yet.
Yeah, so they're generally called certifications or recommendations. Yeah. We're leaving that up to the physicians, just because whatever federal guidelines they may have that may hinder their ability to give out that recommendation. So it's really up to them, the licensing board from the nursing or the medical licensing board, to approve physicians to do so. So we're essentially just leaving it up to the medicine or the medical field to make that determination, because we're here to just regulate the those that want to apply into the program. We're not here to overstep our boundaries in telling physicians what they can and cannot do, so to speak. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking if there's any type of collaboration to not try and tell people what to do, but at least to get, informed um, guidelines, or just as a community, so that if they are going to be prescribing things like this, that there's, some kind of level of uniformity in how the medical I don't know what to call it. That group of people would then also address it all in the same way. I guess I'm just curious if there's a plan. I don't know how it works in California, because I do know that there are doctors that you go to for that. So I just wondered if that was something that our medical board is also considering.
Yeah. So, oh, and I'm
Oh, no,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
shoot. Did you? Okay. No, so we did have a meeting. We had a preliminary meeting with CHCC. And at that meeting, it was discussed how they were going to go about it. The last we heard, they were going to bring it up to their board. So until that determination is made on our side, we just kind of wait for them to even see if they're going to approve it. And if that approval comes through the pipeline, then we'll come together and collaborate. So we're hoping that happens, because that is in the intent of the law, right? Is to address those that medically need cannabis. And that is our priority. However, until other ancillary agencies that are part of that decision-making process are on board, we really are just here to kind of support them and provide any education or outreach, whatever that they need, so that they can make more informed decisions.
Thank you. And I guess I think of the next steps of the when a lab is available and we are able to have edible type things, having the right dosage and making sure that the medical community is part of that is just what I was curious. I realized we maybe are early. It is still very new and fresh, so that could be something that we see for later in the future. I also was curious about transport, sorry, just my last question. I guess thinking of Tinian and Rhoda also, with how um, they could be great growing places, but how do we get that to the marketplace, which might be, a larger community on this side, or vice versa, if there's no growers there? Has that issue been resolved yet, or did I open the can of worms?
I can touch up on that because that is, or I'm sorry, MD, did you? Is it okay? No, that is probably the number one question that we always get asked is inter island transport. What are we doing? And we realize that sometimes hinders the progress in Tinian and Rhoda, right? Because the reality is their population is really small, and to invest in something as I guess costly as cannabis would maybe kind of make them feel like, is this investment worth it? But the reality is it's still federally illegal. Bottom line, that's what it is. It's still federally illegal, which means we have to abide by FAA regulations. We do have the Coast Guard that manage our waters. And so that really is where we draw the line. This is out of our hands. It's really within the federal jurisdictions that we don't want to poke at, to call attention to whether or not we're even providing a robust regulatory industry, right? So we like to err on the side of caution all the time. Whenever we make decisions, it's always, is this lawful? And because transport is not, we tend to just leave that up for legal debate until such time we're able to do so. Then, of course, we'd love to help with residents from Tinian and Rhoda getting their hands into playing in the cannabis industry, because we'd love for them to participate. There's so much room for people to do so. And I know that that's the number one hindrance. And so we are going to be 100% on board once, things take off and federally it becomes legal. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Before I recognize anybody else, I'd like to ask the managing director, do you know how many more slides you have to go through? So we can give you the,
I'm actually going to wrap it up really quickly.
Okay.
I did want to make a big point here. Or, not here. Let me go to my last slide. See, I had a couple more slides. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, that's good.
No, I'm glad. I compiled everything here. And you'll actually see this in our budget submission too. So please look out for our budget submission. So a couple of challenges we're still we still see happening with the commission. Yes, we're fresh and we're new, but in order to move forward with an industry during this time, we see that there's interest. For any business during this pandemic time to even think about or take the first move to apply is a huge deal, because they have a lot to risk. But we're trying to set up the framework to be able to do this. And so we need to acquire funding to purchase a cannabis tracking system. I was going to kind of give you guys a breakdown, but what I'll do is I'll provide you with those slides so we can ask questions at another time. But it's not necessarily pricey, but it's a commitment. Some jurisdictions, they have a contract with a cannabis tracking system company that range from 6 years to 10 years, and there's an annual fee. I would like to see our Commonwealth commit to a cannabis tracking system in order for us to be the most effective that we can be. Now, please don't think this is an off-the-shelf purchase. It's a system that will be designed to cater to what our Commonwealth can handle. I understand we don't even have Amazon being shipped to our own houses yet, but that's something that we hope to see in the future. So we really do need a cannabis tracking system to push forward even more with enforcement. Acquire funding to provide adequate training. I would love to send my team. I want to be able to send my team to learn from the best and the brightest out there. Even though it's federally illegal, when you looked at that one photo of the green America, oh my gosh, I just want to show you this pic. This is how legalized cannabis is. The gray are fully illegal, but the rest are legal to an extent, either legalized completely, medicinally, or decriminalized. So we see the nation becoming all green. So we're going to really need to
That's all green.
almost all green.
Well, it's Light green and dark green.
Oh, yeah.
Which
So
green are you talking about?
I'm talking about any type of green on
Oh,
this
okay,
map.
okay.
So that's some sort of form of legalization. Whether it's medicinal only, whether it's legalized completely, whether it's decriminalized, whether it's medical and decriminalized. You see that the nation is going green, which is good. Going green is good. Um, but I wanted to bring that up is to be able to have my team be trained with the best and the brightest. Those who have already been in this industry for so long. Acquire funding to hire an in-house legal counsel is 100% necessary. Don't get me wrong, the Office of the Attorney General, we have a great legal counsel who has just been with us from the very beginning, and she does her absolute best, but she is not dedicated solely to ourselves. She has other agencies she has to um, help and assist. We need one that's going to be able to answer our questions, especially when there's an enforcement related issue going on. Acquire funding to support enforcement investigations and permitting and licensing efforts. I mean, we do need more funding to acquire capital assets, such as a drone. I think a drone would be very necessary for enforcement investigations to be able to see if where are the plantations all around. We're not only working within our capacity as the commission, we're working with DPS, we're working with customs, we're working with a whole fleet of law enforcement officers who want to help us, but we also need to be able to help ourselves. Acquire funding to establish and support our permanent satellite offices in Tinian and Rhoda. Like I said, Tinian and Rhoda will never be on the back burner, but with the way funding is, we're not able to provide for them. And also, let me mention Northern Islands. There's a part in the Cannabis Amendment that talks about the Northern Islands. We need to ensure that we're able to support outer islands too. More amendments to the Public Law 20-66-21-05. We need support and commitment from the House, and we need it from the Senate, and we need it from the governor's office to be able to move forward. We are always going to be ready to sit here and to provide you all the information necessary, but we also need the support in moving forward quickly. Some things are necessarily needed now. Amendments to site and zoning, don't worry about that. We're talking with the zoning office. We already drafted the bill, and so we're working with Jerry right now with SNILD. And yes, guys, we really do need to establish a cannabis commission revolving account for operations, mainly because of all these other challenges. You know, the revolving account could potentially be where resources for my team to be able to have uniforms, or my team to be able to, acquire surveying equipment, or like I said, a drone, etc. Us to be able to hire that in-house legal counsel, to be able to have funding that's readily available, collected from application fees, licensing fees, though not so much. But we'll see that money increase as more people are committing. Another 76,000 equals up to 161,000 something dollars if you put all of the money together. And that $161,000 can really go far for us, truly. And so the Cannabis Act created privileges for the CNMI, but it also established a lot of compliance factors. And the only way we're able to be able to protect our community, protect our youth, but also provide that privileges to people who are 21 years of age or older is support. That's the only way. And if we don't have the support, then it's just going to continuously be this slide that I'm going to have to present. That's it.
Last question.
Sure.
Have you guys established a hotline to report, let's say, violations? I think that's something that you guys should consider. If not,
So on our website, so we do have a website. I'm glad this is being aired. www.cnmicannabis.org. Our website was designed by our very own chairperson, Nadine DeLeon Guerrero, who did it for free. So thank you. It has a plethora of resources. You can learn how to apply. You can learn about licensing fees, homegrown, etc. You can even find the complaint form and how to submit that complaint form. That will go directly to our enforcement division. So yes. There is a not necessarily hotline, but also a readily available system to submit complaints. Or you can call us.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else? Recognize Representative Joel Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know I'm not a member of this committee, and thank you for allowing me to ask my questions. I just have one last question. Where do the fees and the violations or the fines go to right now?
Okay. In Public Law 21-05, 53030, Section G, I can be completely wrong. I'm just flexing a little. No, I'm just kidding. There's a section that says application and licensing fees should go into a separate account, separate from the general fund, and be utilized for operations within the commission. But that is subject to appropriation by the legislature. We've never been appropriated any funding that we've acquired. Hence the cannabis revolving account, why we would think it would be a wonderful idea to be able to have no fiscal year limitations on that. Yeah, that's where it really goes. The only other account that is created or supposed to be created is the cannabis tax account, which is also a separate fund, but that's what's going to be, that's where all of the cannabis tax related fees, et cetera, will be held. That's where those two general funds or accounts are via the Cannabis Act. Keep going. Sorry, I don't know where to end sometimes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Thank you, Representative Joel. Anybody else? Recognize Representative Vicente Camacho and then Representative Corina Magofnia.
One more question. So, if smoking marijuana is prohibited around minors, but private citizens are also allowed to grow their own marijuana, how does the law interpret or differentiate the between possession and the use of marijuana?
You're referring to homegrown marijuana? Okay, so in the homegrown regulations, under the cannabis rules and regulations, right? The application process, there's a section on the application that says, do you have any minors, anyone under 21 years of age who resides in your household? They're supposed to say yes or no. If they say yes, they're supposed to let us know how many. So I think, yeah, how many or just yes or no? Sorry, I think we might have changed it. Following that question are lengthy questions regarding security measures, lengthy questions regarding operations. This is where what Commissioner Matt had mentioned earlier is we need to be able to reasonably deny. If they're not able to ensure that their cannabis that they're growing with their 5-year-old daughter living in the same household that daughter is not able to access that cannabis, if they're not able to do that, we should be able to deny them, or at least give them an opportunity to, alleviate that issue we have with their application. So security measures include, is the cannabis inaccessible to minors? Is it inaccessible to anyone who is not the owner of the house or the card holder? Do they have a padlock? Is it able to be safely secured and stored in a separate room within your household or a separate, vault location, etc.? So those in the application, those regulations come strictly from the regulations that the board had created. So yes, they can cultivate with minors that live in the household, but they can only do so if they have these security measures in place. And we do note that. I will honestly be very honest. When my permitting and licensing team provides me an application and there's an applicant that says there's a minor, we look at that application a lot more critically because of that fact. Yeah.
Recognize Representative Corina Magofnia.
Thank you, Rep. That's the second time. Okay, I have a couple questions. So going back to having the marijuana event. So let's say that the applicant is approved and there are no minors, right? What happens to the smoke that drifts into the neighbor's yard who happens to have minors?
That that is one thing that we look at too, is location, right? So you can own a private property. Oh, I will let my vice chair actually answer
If
that.
you don't mind, Chair.
No problem.
So I think there's a lot of interest in this one. So first off, maybe if I can just do a run through. The authorization for temporary marijuana events is provided under the law, which provides for the 10-day requirement. But the regulations have been developed and promulgated, have been really refining that, requiring, at least on the initial front step, even before notification and 30-day, having the worst luck there. Before notification, before the 30-day notice, it's development of a events plan. So the events plan would cover what are the written documents and the protocols for curtailing minors from entering. What are the ID checks? How many staff are you going to have on there? What is the function going to be about? Because we allow for commercial uses, both passive and active. So that would be direct sales, like a Sabaloof market kind of
Okay.
environment indoors, probably, most likely, or passive, where it's a demonstration or it's a exhibit. So it's no usage, no direct sales, but here's the products that we have. These are sort of the ideas that we were envisioning. Oh boy. So the following that, then it goes into the development of a temporary premises license. And so the inspection staff, just as they would do for a lounge or a retail operation, would go into the establishment and get a understanding of the location. Premises, as it's defined under the law and in the regulations, requires it to be indoors. So it's all sided up and not visible. We've also added subsequent regulations talking about windows and visible line of sight from the exterior of a retail establishment or a marijuana facility. So those are all components of a temporary license. And once the temporary licensure for that premises is given, then that premises becomes the license area, and which also incorporated in the plan is odor. Odor, to the concern about intoxicated driving, controls for making sure that there isn't, that the compliance with the law that says that you cannot give marijuana to an visibly intoxicated person as a way to curtail that aspect. Yeah, so the site plan is really the guiding document that would really be the first step in determining whether or not they are complying with the laws and the regulations, and then the premises inspection to make sure that their plan lines up with the site that they're intending to have it, and then further on the inspections during the event.
So does the team go out to the neighbors and just kind of inspect to make sure that there are no minors nearby, just in case the smoke drifts over?
So we haven't had a request for an event yet, I don't believe.
Okay.
Have we had an applicant for an event?
Has there been a request for an event? No. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Has there been a request for an event? And I'm only asking because this is so new. We just
Sorry.
actually wrote it into regulations. So
Sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I don't need a mic. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, we've had inquiries, people who are interested in what is the process of it.
Mhm.
We want to be able to ensure that the same care goes into providing them with the breakdown of what is expected and what is required so that no one gets lost in translation. Because the last thing we want to do is get to the point where it's time to make a decision and we make a decision for denial based on something very minuscule. Yes, we've had inquiries about even Pika Festival. But that's a very interesting thing because that's on public land. So obviously that's an automatic no. Yes, fortunately it's on public land.
And there's
So-
the existing requirements on 500 feet from a school, daycare, hospital, federal facility. All of those requirements are components of the premises applicability or eligibility.
like schools,
Uh,
daycares,
alcohol.
alcohol.
You cannot have a marijuana event and have cannabis served as well as alcohol.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it's either or. You can't intertwine the two.
Same with the lounges.
okay.
Same with lounges, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
One last one.
Sure.
So for the medicinal marijuana, let's say for an employee has been approved for medicinal marijuana, how does that impact their employment with an employer who doesn't tolerate any, drugs?
Darn, I really wish we could do the enforcement training PowerPoint because I feel like that would also be very informative. Darn. Sorry. Oh, if you want, Chair, you can go ahead. Okay. It's under the jurisdiction of the either public or private company. We don't sit and we don't tell anyone whether or not they're a public OPM or a private company that they should or should not do. They have the right to continue their THC drug testing if they see fit. Yeah.
And if I could, Chair, just an area of clarification
Sure.
that we try to make when we do these presentations is the scope of what the commission does. If you look in the code, it's under the business regulation. And so really, if you look at the law and our requirements under the law, we regulate business operations, we regulate licensees. There are a lot of things related to cannabis that fall outside of that scope. Illegal sales, that is a crime in which it would be drug trafficking under our partners in DPS. There's a lot of areas in which we're trying to build out the capacity in the network to be able to address and collaborate resources to be able to work towards. but really we are business regulators, and we're regulating the licensees that are conducting business and commercial activity.
Thank you. Would you like to wrap up, Monique, or is that?
Just to reiterate, thank you for the opportunity to be able to present. I know it's been a while since we were able to do a presentation, I think like a year, but we are more than happy to come back and provide more information, given that the information and data is available. The Cannabis Act amendments are crucial at this moment. So I really hope that the committee can help pursue or push the cannabis forward, so that cannabis amendments forward, so that we can continue our work that we're doing. Any other questions, please go ahead and forward that to my office, and I'll have myself and my team be able to provide the information. If you'd like a copy of this PowerPoint, let me know. I will also provide that. But thank you to my commissioners. They've been my support system. I know I've been the only single staff truly under or noted employee, but it wouldn't have gotten this far without their help. And yeah, they had no choice but to answer my phone calls, even at 12 a.m. or my weird questions that I have. So thank you to the committee. Thank you, Acting Chair. And thank you,
No,
everyone.
she just asked me to facilitate. I'm not acting.
Sorry.
But thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and we look forward to more presentations, perhaps on a quarterly basis. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Monique, and thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Tom Song Song and Commissioner Journey.
Thank you.